This is Marty, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing for more bookish contents like this. So, nakahanap din ako ng place sa bahay namin na hindi gaano maliwanag. I have to close the door and put down the curtains para hindi masyadong maliwanag. For the month of December, I have decided to read all the classics that I have bought during the NBS sale. So, let me correct myself pala. These are not Penguin classics. These are the Collins classics that we saw. These are only 99 pesos each. So if you are interested in going through classics and starting your classic reading, you may want to start with these simplified Collins classics. The thing though, I bought this Little Women by Louisa May Alcott Collins classics because my order from Folly Book has not arrived yet, back then, but 2 weeks later, it arrived. So, which to read? Naturally, I gravitate towards beautiful covers, so I'm sorry, Collins Classics. I'm going to read a beautiful cover. Anyway, same content. This is just more pleasing to my eyes, so we will start with Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. And then we will have darker storytelling, which is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. Phantom of the Opera is one of my favorite classics. Let's see if I still love it after so many years of not reading it. So, join me in my everyday life and my reading sprints as I reread Little Women by Louisa May Alcott and Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux.
Papaalala lang nun yung galit niya kay Homelander na pinindeho siya nitong misis niya.
While I'm showing you a glimpse of my work, let me also sprout some nerdy stuff about Louisa May Alcott, our acclaimed author of this masterpiece called Little Women. So Louisa May Alcott was born in a family of transcendentalist parents, and transcendentalism is a movement in reaction to this feeling that the society is losing its mores and therefore needs reform. And one of the reforms being talked about here is actually the great opposition to black slavery, which the American Civil War is all about. The Alcott family even hid a runaway slave in their house in 1847 to show their strong objection to this controversy. Now, socio-politically speaking, Louisa May Alcott has a lot of contribution in the society and is held as an early feminist and humanitarian. So now let's talk about her novel Little Women. Her popularity grew when she published the first part of Little Women in 1868. She then published right away on the next year in 1869 the second part of this novel, entitled it Good Wives. In the first part, we were introduced to these 4 sisters of the March family. Now in 1880, the entirety of Little Women was published as one great novel about this American family from a female perspective. And that is important because when this novel was published in 19th century, women are deemed less important than men during that period. Part of Little Women introduced us to these 4 sisters, Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy. And Louisa gave them personalities that are an opposition to the ideal women of the Christian world when this was published. And those personality flaws are now the goal of these 4 sisters to overcome. So these girls then embarked to a pilgrim from childhood to becoming a better person. The girls were devoted to better themselves and mature gracefully so they would reach their castles in the air. The part 1 ended with Mr. March coming home from the Civil War and the family whole again because Beth recovered from her scarlet fever, albeit weakened heart and health. Part 2, originally titled Good Wives and was published in 1869, followed the journey of the beloved March sisters into womanhood, where Meg married John Brooke. Contrary to her fantasies before, John Brooke is poor. Now that shows the development of Meg's personality from being a materialistic girl into a woman who values love more than family status and money. It was also in this part that Jo became a an author and establish a school for boys together with her lover, Professor Bear. Beth died in the end because of her weak health as a result of her scarlet fever in the previous year. And Amy, abandoning her previous engagement to a rich man and married her childhood crush, Lori or Teddy.
I'm back from choir practice. So katatapos lang mag-disinfect and maligo from church. So let's do some reading bago tayo mag-dinner. Thoughts so far. This book makes me miss my family so much. Like what I said before, I live and grew up in a big family, and this book makes me miss all of my siblings and all our antics when we were young. Tapos na-touch ako dun sa part na these girls are so kind, nakaka-touch yung kanilang kindness and generosity to other people, lalo na nung on the day of Christmas itself, they did something amazing to their neighbor. Naisip ko na sana when I have my own family in the future, I could also teach them how to be kind, how to be generous to other people, lalo na sa mga nangangailangan. I'm really enjoying this. So this book is really perfect for holiday seasons. Kung naghahanap kayo ng book to read for the holidays, I strongly recommend Little Women. So we will continue reading now. Naubos ko na yung copy ko, magtitimple lang ulit ako ng bago.
My favorite character is Marmy. Reading the book in different stages of life gives new take on it. I read Little Women in college as a required reading in my course. I loved it then because Jo resonates with me so much, being hot-headed or impatient or quick-tempered, aspiring writer, boyish, and loves her parents and family above anyone else. However, reading it now, I deeply appreciate Marmy and how admirable she is in being the backbone of the family in the absence of their father. Marmy is now one of my role models in rearing compassionate, sweet, and loving children, and I look up to her as I dream of my own family in the future. Plot-wise, Little Women is this classic blueprint of telenovela that we watch nowadays. And if you see family drama in TV and have read Little Women before that family drama, I'm sure you will see the resemblance of this family drama with this classic novel. And my favorite part in the story was when Meg decided that she is contented of what she had after she spent her time in the grandiose life of the Moffat's family. And actually, I love every time that the girls would go to Marmy and ask for pieces of advice from her. And Marmy, being Marmy, would guide these heartbroken girls. My favorite quote from Marmy is also my dream as a future mother. Or maybe this is also the dream of every mother in the world. And I quote, "I want my daughters to be beautiful, accomplished, and good, and to be admired, loved, and respected, to have a happy youth, and to be well and wisely married, and to lead useful, pleasant lives, with as little care and sorrow to them as God sees fit to send. To be loved and chosen by a good man is the best and sweetest thing which can happen to a woman, and I sincerely hope my girls may know this beautiful experience. It is natural to think of it, Meg, right to hope and wait for it, and wise to prepare for it, so that when the happy time comes, you may feel ready for the duties and worthy of the joy. My dear girls, I am ambitious for you, but not to have you make a dash in the world. Marry rich men merely because they are rich or have splendid houses, which are not homes, because love is one thing. Money is a needful and precious thing, and, when well used, a noble thing. But I never want you to think it is the first or only prize to strive for. I'd rather see you poor men's wives, if you were happy, beloved, contented, than queens on thrones without self-respect and peace." End quote. My copy, however, is unfortunately just the part 1 of it, and I slightly regret it, but since it's a beautiful cover, I will just keep it and buy the green version, which I will show on the screen. This one. This one is the complete version. It has the part 1 and part 2 of it. The writing style felt a little dated at first. That's coming from somebody who reads Shakespeare. That's just because I happen to read a lot of fantasies which are published in the 21st century. So, huge difference. You get used to it as the story goes on, and it becomes easier to get into. If you're going to choose a film adaptation though to watch after you read this novel, I highly recommend the 1994 adaptation with Winona Ryder as Jo and Kirsten Dunst as young Amy, because this Little Women has a lot of film adaptation. Its first film adaptation was a British silent film released in 1917. It was followed then by an American silent film adaptation in 1918. Then comes the Great Depression, and Little Women was once again adapted into film in 1933, and it was well received because during that time, Little Women was praised for its simplicity and frugality. It showcased the resiliency of the spirit of the characters that inspired a lot of people during the Great Depression. Because Little Women's first chapter actually started with how they lament on not receiving Christmas presents during Christmas and being poor during the holiday seasons. So it really resonated with a lot of people during the Great Depression. This was then adapted to many TV series, Broadway, opera, and ballet performances. And then that leads us to my favorite adaptation of all, the 1994 film adaptation directed by a woman and casted Winona Ryder, Kirsten Dunst, Samantha Mathis, Trini Alvarado, Claire Danes, and Susan Sarandon. So going back to the novel, I gave this book a solid 5 stars, even though it's not fantasy, because it speaks volume about significant human experience and how it is to be a good person, a good neighbor, a good daughter, and a good Christian. The relationship dynamics in this book is highly praised for because it showcases a lot of relationships and how to be a good person in that relationship and how to overcome your disheartening situation. This book is still a relevant book even after 2 centuries pass. This is heavy on character development and likable characters for that matter, whom you would either resonate with or root for. Again, I rated this 5 stars over 5, and I highly recommend it, especially to people who are hesitant to read classics. I highly recommend that you start with Little Women because it could ignite that classic literature vibe and could take you to places. And that's all for Little Women. I'll see you again in the part 2 of this reading vlog where I read The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. Bye!